So we're having a technical issue. Can we just hold on one moment?
I want to welcome everybody back again.
Jeg vil gerne byde alle velkommen tilbage igen.
Let's open with a word of prayer.
Lad os åbne med en bøn.
Holy God,
Hellige Gud,
you are everything to us.
du er alt til os.
I want to personally thank you for all that you do in my life.
Jeg vil gerne personligt takke dig for alt du gør i mit liv.
How you've led me all these many years to this point.
Du har ledt mig disse mange år til det her tidspunkt.
I know my experience is mirrored in the lives of many people.
Jeg ved, at min egen erfaring og oplevelse, den spejles i
You've
mange.
led each of us individually to this point.
Du har ledt os individuelt indtil det her tidspunkt.
As we anticipate the soon coming Sunday law,
I takt med, at vi afventer den nært forestående søndagslov,
we see its agitation throughout society.
så ser vi dens agitation rundt omkring i
Help
samfundet.
each of us
Hjælp hver enkelt af os
to make an intellectual,
til at lave en intellektuel
an emotional, and a spiritual preparation.
og en åndelig forberedelse.
In Jesus' name,
I
amen.
Jesu navn. Amen.
Welcome back.
Velkommen tilbage.
I apologize. I know we're having technical difficulties at this camp meeting, but things happen.
Klar for de tekniske udfordringer ved det her camp-meeting. Men ting sker.
So in our last study,
Så i
we
vores
began discussing the subject of Sabbath keeping.
begyndte vi at diskutere emnet om at holde sabbat.
And as is always the case,
Og som det altid er tilfældet,
people have very strong opinions on how we keep the Sabbath,
så har folk meget stærke holdninger til, hvordan vi holder sabbat,
and how we should relate not only to God, but the world in which we live.
og hvordan vi skal relatere ikke blot til Gud, men også til verden, som vi lever i.
I changed the context after that discussion
Jeg skiftede kontekst efter den diskussion
to deal with a related subject,
for at tale om et relateret emne,
which is the subject of the 1850 history
som er emnet omhandlende 1850-historien,
that relates to slavery.
der relaterer sig til slaveriet.
And we find all of this in the book Early Writings,
Og vi finder alt dette i bogen Early Writings,
which we know is a compilation of a couple of books.
som vi ved er en samling af flere bøger.
One of them is Spiritual Gifts, Volume 1.
En af dem, det er Spiritual Gifts, første bind.
So we discussed all of that in the words that are on the board.
Så vi diskuterede alle de her ord, som er på tavlen.
We then went to the 1888 history,
Dernæst gik vi til 1888-historien,
and we saw that the test that was confronting, we'll say, God's people,
vi så et testen, som konfronterede, lad os sige, Guds folk.
we could also say the United States,
Vi kan også godt sige USA.
it was a Protestant phenomena.
Det var et protestantisk fænomen.
It wasn't a Catholic-led initiative.
Det var ikke et katolsk ledet initiativ.
And we use the term apostate Protestantism, or at least Ellen White does.
Og vi bruger begrebet frafalden protestantisme, eller Ellen White, hun gør.
And we see that as a singular test.
Og vi ser det som enkelt test.
When we go to an earlier history, nearly 40 years before,
Når vi går til en tidligere historie, næsten 40 år forud,
we know the history.
så kender vi
We
historien.
know about the fugitive slave law.
Vi kender til den flygtende slavelov.
We know about the Civil War
Vi kender til borgerkrigen
and the steps that led up to all of those things happening.
og alle de skridt, der ledte op til, at det skete.
The Great Compromise.
Det store kompromis.
And we put that all together by saying that 1850 is the Sunday law.
Det pullede vi alt sammen ved at sige, at 1850 det er søndagsloven.
We have the close of probation,
Vi har nået tidens ophør.
the time of trouble,
Problemernes tid,
ending with the second advent.
som endte med det andet komme.
So that's as far as we got in our previous study.
Så det er så langt vi kom i vores seneste studie.
So in the 1888 history,
Så i 1888 historien,
when we compare that to the 1850 history,
når vi sammenligner det med 1850 historien,
we saw that was slavery.
der så vi, at det var slaveri.
At least that's what someone placed here.
Det var i hvert fald det, som nogen placerede her.
And that's the Declaration of Human Rights or Civil Rights.
Det er eller menneskerettighedserklæring.
So I have a question.
Så jeg har et spørgsmål.
We've moved around 40 years into the future.
Så vi er gået omkring 40 år ind i fremtiden.
Susan, why is slavery not here?
Susan, hvorfor er slaveriet ikke her?
Why is it only a singular issue now of Sunday?
Hvorfor handler det om søndagen?
So Susan said it's no longer the test.
Så Susan siger, at det ikke længere er testen.
So why is it no longer the test, Susan? Why did God say it was a test and now it's not a test? Why did God change God's mind?
Så Susan, hvorfor ændrede Gud holdningen? Hvorfor er det ikke længere testen?
She said different dispensation.
Hun siger, at det er en anden dispensation. En anden tid.
Okay, I think that was code word for saying I'm not sure.
Jeg tror, det var et kort for at sige, at jeg ikke er sikker.
Okay, so some of us may not be sure,
Så
but
nogle
I
af jer
want us to be sure
er
that
ikke sikre.
something has changed,
Men jeg vil gerne have, at vi er sikre på, at noget har ændret sig.
that we haven't missed anything.
At vi ikke har misset noget.
Okay,
Okay,
Gloria?
Gloria.
United States local to Christendom? Is it?
Okay, so Gloria says we went from the United States back.
Så Gloria siger, at vi i
So
USA
Gloria's-
fra det her.
So 1850 was a US issue.
Så 1850, det var et amerikansk issue.
And she says maybe the 1888 is a Christendom issue.
Til at 1888, det er et kristent issue, kristendom.
Okay, so do you mean that this was United States government and this is the United States churches? Is that what you mean?
Så mener du, at det her, det var den amerikanske regering, og det her, det er de amerikanske kirker?
So she said yes.
Så hun sagde ja.
So then that would sort of mean like it was a state and then a church issue.
Det betyder, at det først var et statsligt, dernæst et kirkemæssigt problem.
So what did someone say in this history is happening here on this date?
Så hvad vil nogen, som var i den historie, sige, at der skete på den her dato,
That we mark or we picked up?
som vi markerer eller opfanger.
Sorry? Law. So we had a law here.
Så vi har lov her.
Do you agree with that, Gloria?
Er du enig med det?
And hence state.
Og derfor staten.
And in this history,
Og den her
the
historie,
1888 history,
1888-historien,
we know that it didn't go far enough.
så ved vi, at det gik langt nok.
But what's being proposed here?
Men hvad er det, der foreslås her?
A law.
En lov.
So it's a law here too.
Så der er også en lov her.
So Gloria, if it's a law in both histories,
Så Gloria, hvis det er en lov i begge historier,
would it be fair to say that this was state and this would be Christendom?
vil det så være fair at sige, at det her det var staten, og det her det var kristendom?
Yes.
No. No, it wouldn't be fair to say that. Yeah?
Nej, det vil ikke være fair at sige det. Vil det?
So it's a state-driven initiative
Så det er et statsdrevet initiativ
in 50, and
1800,
it's a state-driven initiative in 88.
og det er også et statsdrevet initiativ i 1888.
You agree with that? Okay.
Er du enig
So
med det?
when the state says we want to make a law,
Så når staten siger, at vi vil gerne lave en lov,
people are going to say, why?
så vil folk sige, hvorfor?
Defend your position.
Forsvare din position.
And they're not going to say, we just like taking holidays.
Og de har ikke tænkt sig at sige, at vi kan bare gøre det i ferie.
What's the reason for this law? What's behind it?
Hvad er årsagen til den her lov? Hvad ligger bag den?
You said it was. So she says church
Hun sagde, at det var kirke.
or Christendom. So here in this history,
Så her i den her historie,
they have this slavery,
der har de det her historie. Der har
and
de
people
det,
are going to say, justify it.
og folk de vil sige, retfærdiggør det.
And is a farmer going to say, I make lots of money on the backs of human beings?
Og vil en landmand sige, jeg tjener mange penge på baggrund af andre
They
mennesker.
might believe that, but they're not going to use that argument.
De tror det, de synes det måske, men de vil ikke bruge det argument.
What argument will they use?
Hvilket argument vil de bruge?
The Bible. They will use the Bible
De vil bruge Bibelen
or Christendom.
eller kristendom.
So there's not much difference between the two, really.
Så der er ikke stor forskel på de to.
So my question then was,
Så mit spørgsmål var da,
we're in this history, the 1888 history,
ja, i den her historie, 1888-historien,
but there's no slavery being addressed now.
men der er ikke noget slaveri, der bliver adresseret her.
Why?
Hvorfor?
It's an issue of the immigration.
Okay, so there are other issues, but why slavery not here anymore? Are you saying it's
There was a law that outlawed slavery.
Der er andre emner, men
okay? So
Yeah.
my question is, why is slavery not here, part of this test or the test?
Mit spørgsmål er, hvorfor er slaveriet ikke her en del af testen?
And this was all state.
Og det her, det handlede om staten.
And Kathy said,
Kathy sagde,
somewhere in this 40-year history,
et eller andet sted i den her 40-årige historie,
the state addresses the slavery issue.
så adresserer staten slaveriets spørgsmål.
So it's no longer an issue anymore.
Så det er ikke længere et problem.
So all those greedy farmers in this history,
Så alle de nære landmænd i den her historie,
the state says,
Staten-
suffer, we don't care.
lid, vi er ligeglade.
And all those pastors in this history,
Og alle de præster i
the
den her,
government says,
der siger regeringen,
we don't care about you either.
vi er også ligeglade med jer.
Somewhere in this history, there's a change about slavery.
Et eller andet sted i den historie, der sker der en forandring i forhold til slaveriet.
Yes? Okay. Claudia.
Claudio,
Yes, yes.
We know because of the chiasmatic structure of Eden to Eden.
We know that there's a chiasm, and that model is Eden to Eden.
vi ved, der er en kiasme af den model, det er eden til eden.
So following that previous the mirror, we know that from Eve, the sin of Eden, then came Cain, the worship, and then came slavery. So that's the mirror images, and now we're seeing the same thing replicated on this side where we are living. And sometimes it's misleading the Sunday law as a name, because that's in general is the mark of the beast.
Okay, so Claudio has said,
Det så Claudio har sagt,
based upon an Eden to Eden chiastic model,
at baseret på en kiastisk model,
he
der
said there were 3 issues at the beginning, and there will be 3 at the end.
i begyndelsen, 3 i enden.
He said the third one was slavery,
Han sagde, at det tredje, det var slaveri,
which would mean the first one would be slavery.
hvilket betyder, at det første her vil være slaveri.
And he's saying this issue here
Han siger, det her emne her,
is fixed somewhere in this history.
det bliver løst et eller andet sted i den her historie.
Yes? Have I represented you accurately? He said yes.
Præsenterer dig korrekt? Ja, der,
And that's what Kathy was saying, yes?
det var også det, Kathy, hun sagde.
Okay, are we all in agreement with this?
Er vi alle
Nope.
enige i det?
No mistakes?
Ingen fejl?
I have to say that because they blame me for making the mistake. They honestly do. They I should know
Jeg
better.
spørger, fordi jeg bliver altid anklaget for at lave fejl.
Okay, so when is that law?
Okay, så hvornår kommer den her lov?
Do we know the date? Put your
No.
hand up, anybody? Kathy? 1863. So what
63.
what is the law in 1863?
Hvad er loven i 1863?
The Emancipation Law. Okay, so
Det er frigørelsesloven.
Kathy wants to put that law in 1863.
Så Kathy vil gerne placere den lov i 1863.
Anyone else?
Nogle andre?
Will we agree with that?
Er vi enige i det?
Suella?
Ellen?
Well, I thought there was a law that would, that pertained to the southern states. Emancipation, proclamation. Pertained to the southern states, but there were like 4 northern states that didn't become law until later.
Okay, so I'm not sure what to write.
Okay, så jeg er ikke sikker på, hvad jeg skal skrive.
So I'm gonna leave the comment from Sue Ellen because I'm not sure what, but I don't have something definitive to say on that. Anyone else?
Nogle andre?
Okay, I can't ask anybody who's online because we don't have chat enabled.
Okay, jeg kan ikke spørge nogen online, for vi har ikke chatten slået til.
The threat changed. What does that mean? She said that the threat changed. What does that mean?
Okay, hun siger, at truslen ændrer sig. Hvad mener du med det?
But not in 1888, they wanted to control the Jews, there's other immigrants that they wanted to enforce something.
So in this history, the issue is about slavery.
Så i den her historie, der handler det om slaveriet.
and the control that people want over this group of people.
og kontrollen, som folk ønsker over
And in
det.
the 1888 history,
Og i 1888-historien,
there's a similar dynamic.
der er der en lignende dynamik.
It's not slavery per se,
Det er ikke nødvendigvis slaveriet,
but it's control of three groups: Adventism, Mormons, Adventism, Jews, and immigrants.
men det er kontrollen af adventister, mormoner og immigranter.
Anyone else? So,
Nogle andre?
what about the amendments?
Hvad med ændringerne?
Go ahead. The 14th Amendment,
Den
which number?
14.
1
amendment,
4? 1 3. Okay, so we've got the 13th Amendment.
så vi har den 13. amendment, eller ændring.
Someone will give me the date for that.
Hvis nogen vil give mig datoen for det.
As they're looking,
Mens de
the
kigger
63 date,
63 datoen.
even though it's valid, it's in the midst of the Civil War.
Selvom den er valid, så er det i midten af borgerkrigen.
So it's not a federally recognized law, if I can put it that way.
Så er det ikke en federalt anerkendt
So
lov.
we've got 1865,
Så vi har 1865,
and it's the 13th Amendment,
og det er den 13. amendment,
which basically does away with slavery.
som de vil se fjerner slaveriet.
And that's why in this history, there is no slavery. It's not part of the test.
Og derfor er der ikke noget slaveri i den her historie. Det er ikke en del af testen.
So what Adventism has done,
Så det, som adventismen har gjort,
it's been selective in its review of history,
det er, at de har været selektive i deres
has
gennemgang.
focused on the later history, the 1888 period,
De har fokuseret på den senere historie, 1888-historien,
and says it's a singular test,
og så siger de, at det er en singulær test,
Sabbath and Sunday.
sabbat og søndag.
Does anybody have any questions or comments on that?
Er der nogen, der har nogle spørgsmål eller kommentarer til det?
Okay, so now this movement has been raised up,
Okay, og nu er den her bevægelse blevet,
and if we go to its inception,
hvis vi går til dens begyndelse,
for the first few decades,
i de første,
we were in complete agreement with this model,
så er vi i total enighed med den her model.
the Adventist model, I mean.
Adventisternes model, mener jeg.
The movement knew all of these dates.
Bevægelsen vidste alle disse datoer.
It had some clues about maybe 50 being the Sunday law.
De havde nogle anelser om, at 1850 måske var søndagsloven,
Depending on what studies one would look at,
baseret på hvilke studier man ville se på.
because why? I don't know if people are familiar with some of the earlier studies. Why did we have an awareness of this?
Hvorfor havde vi en bevidsthed om det her?
Before Elder Tess brought this study to us.
Før Elder Tess, hun bragte det her studie til os.
Go ahead. No, why we knew that this was a Sunday law.
Nej, hvorfor vidste vi, at det her det var en søndagslov?
Someone just asked a question and I didn't. They just wanted clarification. Claudia.
Claudio,
The chart. No, we were internally, we went to, we have to.
So my question was, before Elder Tessie's study, we had an awareness of this framework.
så mit spørgsmål var, før Elder Tess studie, der havde vi en idé om det her den her struktur.
And I asked about 1850 and the Sunday law.
Og jeg spurgte ind til 1850 og søndagslov.
And Claudio mentioned the chart,
Og Claudio, han mentioned en
the 1850 chart.
en chart, 1850
Harriet?
chart.
You want to say more?
There is a Sabbath there, you know, and there's more in the church went into the Laodicean condition at that moment.
So tell me a bit more about Sunday law and the chart.
That on the,
Så fortæl mig lidt mere om søndagsloven
that in
og
the chart
den her planche.
of 1843, there was no Sabbath. Everybody was a Sunday keeping.
So the 1850 chart mentions Sabbath,
Så 1850 planchen, den nævner sabbaten.
George, what does it not mention on the chart?
George, hvad er det, den ikke nævner planchen?
Yeah. Just look around. What doesn't it mention? If you need help, It doesn't mention slavery.
Den nævner ikke slaveriet.
And that chart was created for a purpose.
Og den planche blev skabt med et bestemt formål.
Jim, what was the chart created for? What's its purpose, its function?
Hvad blev den her planche skabt for? Hvad var dens funktion?
You're not sure? Just say not sure.
Hvis du ikke ved det, så bare sige, at du ikke er sikker.
That's fine.
Det er fint.
Kathy, what's the
Kathy.
purpose of this chart?
Hvad er formålet med den her tavle?
Go ahead.
To prepare people for the second coming of Jesus.
So Kathy says it's to prepare people for the second advent.
Så Kathy siger, det er for at forberede folk til Jesus andet komme.
Kathy, which people?
Kathy, hvilke mennesker? Hvilke folk?
So Kathy says the world.
Så Kathy siger verden.
So this chart was created as an evangelistic tool
Så den her planche blev skabt som et evangelistisk
It's an aid or a helper
Det er et værktøj
to go to the world to tell them about the second advent.
til at gå til verden for at fortælle om det andet komme.
And in order to do that,
Og for at gøre det,
what does the church, the movement, see fit to put on this chart?
hvad gør kirken så? Hvad ser de som passende til at putte på den her planche?
Kathy, what does it see fit to put on that chart?
Kathy,
So it sees fit to put the Sabbath on the chart,
så de ser det som okay at placere sabbaten på
and
planchen,
it misses what?
og den mangler hvad? Hvad mangler den?
It misses slavery.
Den mangler slaveriet.
Okay. David,
David,
why?
hvorfor?
I'll give you two options.
Jeg giver dig to muligheder.
They make a mistake,
De laver en fejl,
an oversight.
ser forbi sig.
It's not on their radar.
Det er ikke på deres radar.
All that means they did something wrong.
Eller det betyder, at de gjorde noget forkert.
So is this a wrong chart,
Så er det her en forkert planche.
or
Eller
they did everything correct
så gjorde de alting rigtigt.
and it wasn't supposed to be on the chart?
Og det var ikke meningen, at det skulle være på.
So the two options are
Det er de to muligheder.
dealing with the subject of slavery only.
Når vi udelukkende taler om slaveriet,
Why is it not on there?
hvorfor er det ikke på det?
Mistake,
Fejl?
or
Eller,
it's not supposed to be on there. It's deliberate.
eller det bevidst ikke er placeret på
And I'm not talking about the consciousness of the human,
Jeg taler ikke om menneskets bevidsthed,
unless we say it's a human mistake.
medmindre vi siger, at det er en menneskelig fejl.
Now listen.
The second option. What's the first one?
So David says
David siger,
it's a good chart,
det er en god planche,
and it wasn't supposed to be on there.
og at det ikke var meningen, at den skulle være der på.
Okay, so tell me what others of you think.
Jeg må vide, hvad I andre tænker.
They were not supposed to be involved in politics, in the external events, they only were internally. God was leading them. They didn't want to be involved with the societal.
So Gloria says
Så Gloria siger,
maybe the reason it's not on there
måske er grunden til, at det ikke er der på,
is because they were not meant to get involved in politics.
det kan måske skyldes, at de ikke skulle involvere sig i politik,
In voting,
i at stemme.
they had a higher purpose.
De havde et højere formål.
She didn't say that, but I kind of alluded to that.
Hun sagde det ikke, men det hensyn jeg til.
Did you want to say anything more?
Vil du sige noget mere?
Okay, so they didn't want to get involved in the political mayhem of the day.
Okay, så de ville ikke involveres i det politiske mudder.
They had a higher calling.
De havde et højere kald.
Second advent.
Det andet komme.
And for them, the most important thing was to put the Sabbath in there.
Og for dem var det vigtigste at putte sabbaten på den her planche.
Okay, so does anybody else have any thoughts?
Nogle andre, der har nogle tanker?
Nobody has any thoughts? I
Right.
saw you had. Susan, you
Susan,
don't have any thoughts?
har du ikke nogen tanker?
Just yes or no will do. Okay, do you have any?
yeah.
She said no, she doesn't have any questions.
Så,
Susan, do you have any concerns?
Susan, har du nogle bekymringer?
Yes or no?
Ja eller nej?
Okay, so she has some concerns, but she can't verbalize them.
Jo, hun har nogle bekymringer, men hun kan ikke verbalisere dem. Hun kan ikke
Okay,
tale.
so Parminder, should Susan have some concerns? Yes, she should.
Parminder, burde Susan have nogle bekymringer? Ja, det burde hun.
So my question is,
Mit spørgsmål er,
why should you have a concern?
hvorfor bør du være bekymret?
When we think about everything that we've discussed that's on the board and this person's question.
Når vi tænker på alt det, vi har diskuteret, alt det der er på tavlen og personens spørgsmål.
Kathy,
Kathy,
you don't have to answer that question, but you'd make another point.
du behøver ikke svare det
Well,
spørgsmål.
maybe it does answer is they were supposed to be thinking politically. They should have been taking the whole picture in.
So Kathy says, perhaps they did something wrong and they should have been looking at the bigger picture,
Måske de gjorde noget forkert, og de skulle se på det større billede.
which means they should have been looking at the signs of the times, what was going on in the world.
Hvilket var, måske de skulle kigge på verdens tegn, det der skete ud i
that fair
verden, se hvad der foregik. Er det en fair repræsentation? Ja.
Of the outside world. The outside of the church.
Sure. So,
They needed to be taking in what was going on around them in the world. Yes.
did you want to add anything? Because you said that before. No?
That's
Okay. So Kathy just summarized what she'd already said, so I won't repeat that.
Okay, Kathy, hun opsummerede bare, hvad hun allerede har sagt, så det vil jeg gentage.
So my question is what?
Så spørgsmålet er hvad?
What's my question, Susan?
Susan.
Sorry? Why? Yeah, we should have a concern.
Vi burde være bekymrede.
Kathy.
Kathy.
You could what?
Hvad kunne
Okay, so Kathy says,
hvad Kathy siger,
if this is the message to the world
hvis det her det er budskabet til verden,
and slavery is not on it,
og slaveri ikke er på det,
when you go to the world
når man så går til verden
and say, get your life in order,
og siger, få styr på dit liv,
it doesn't include dealing with slavery.
så inkluderer det ikke, at man tager sig af
Is
slaveri.
that kind of what you said? Okay,
På måde, det du sagde? Okay.
George,
George,
what are your thoughts?
hvad er dine tanker?
What are your concerns, if any?
Hvad er dine bekymringer, hvis du har nogen?
1850 charts aligns with the Sunday law waymark.
So,
A testing message.
so Georgia says that the 1850 chart
Så
aligns with
yeah.
the Sunday law testing message.
At 1850-planchen,
Slavery.
det var lige,
Go ahead.
at det alignet med søndagslovs issueet,
Testing
problemet.
slavery, but the message was about the new stuff added to the charts was the Sabbath and sanctuary. There's no warning about slavery.
So Georgia said,
Så George, han har sagt,
we have a model
vi har en model,
that says the test
der siger,
is slavery.
at slaveriet
1850 slave law,
1850, slaveloven,
the compromise,
kompromiset,
which ends up leading to the Civil War.
som fører til borgerkrigen,
And then the government has to deal with that issue between 63 and 65.
så skal regeringen håndtere det problem mellem 1863 og 1850.
That is the test that's facing, we will say, the world or the United States.
Det er testen, som USA eller verden står for,
But the chart says
men tavlen siger
only Sabbath.
kun sabbaten.
So we've got that far.
Så langt er vi kommet.
And I think everything that we've said so far is factual.
Jeg synes, at alt det, vi har sagt indtil videre, det er faktuelt.
No opinions.
Ingen meninger.
So the opinion or the question now,
Så meningen eller
the concern,
bekymringen,
is that if you look at the evidence,
den er, hvis man kigger på evidensen,
1888,
1888,
we,
os,
God's church,
Guds kirke,
says the test was Sunday sacredness
siger, at testen, det var søndagshelligholdelsen,
or Sabbath keeping, depending on how you want to view it. It's the same issue.
eller sabbatshelligholdelse. Det er det samme emne.
Two sides of the same coin.
To sider af samme sag.
And if you go back and ask God's church,
Hvis man går tilbage og spørger Guds kirke,
whether you want to call them the Millerites, Ellen White, or the Advent movement,
om end man vil kalde dem for milleritterne, eller White, eller
what did they say is the test here?
Hvad sagde de, at testen var her?
They're saying it's exactly the same thing.
De siger, at det er præcis samme ting.
And now we have developed a model
Nu har vi udviklet en model,
that says what?
der siger, hvad?
What does our model now say?
Hvad siger
Simply put.
Sagt på en simpel måde.
So our model says
Så vores
this history, it's all good and well, it's all fine.
den her historie, alt er fint her.
But when you come to this history,
Men når man kommer til den her historie,
forget what the Millerites say,
glem så, hvad milleritterne siger.
forget what the Advent movement says,
Glem, hvad adventsbevægelsen siger.
forget what Ellen White says,
Glem, hvad en White siger.
forget what the, if we can call it, I know it's not properly formed by then, but the general conference is saying,
Glem hvad generalkonferencen siger,
because they're all saying the same thing.
for de siger alle den samme ting.
What are they saying?
Hvad er det, de siger?
George, what are they saying? They're saying Sabbath.
De siger sabbat,
And now we're saying,
og nu siger vi,
forget inspiration,
glem inspirationen.
everything that you thought you believed in,
Alt, som du troede, at du troede på.
all the words that you've read,
Alle ordene, som du har læst.
and we'll develop our own model. Thank you very much.
Og vi vil udvikle vores egen model. Mange tak.
And we'll make the test slavery,
Og vi laver testen til at omhandle
human rights.
menneskerettigheder.
And that's fundamentally different,
Det er fundamentalt anderledes.
not just to a concept or a vacuum that didn't exist.
Ikke kun i forhold til et koncept eller et vakuum, som ikke
It's not like any
Yeah.
that we've got some history that's blank and we've filled in the space that nobody worked out before.
Det er ikke fordi, vi har en historie, en blank historie, som aldrig er blevet gransket før, vi bare har fyldt den
It's
ud.
well documented,
Det er veldokumenteret,
well laid out, properly thought through,
det er lagt ud og tænkt
with
igen.
multiple references
Med mange referencer,
that all leads to a common place,
som alle fører et sted hen,
which says that the test here is not slavery,
som siger, at testen her ikke er slaveriet,
but Sunday
men søndag
or Sabbath.
eller sabbaten.
And we've only scratched the surface.
Og vi har kun lige græsset overfladen.
We haven't even gone into the inspired statements.
Vi er ikke engang gået ind i de inspirerede udsagn.
We won't go into one now because
Vi vil ikke gå ind i det nu,
we're vaguely familiar with them.
fordi vi er vagt bekendte med dem.
But does anybody know, paraphrased,
Men er der
what
nogen,
does
der
Ellen White,
fortalt,
what does Ellen White say or think about this chart when he speaks about its creation?
hvad tænker og siger Ellen White omkring den her planche, når hun taler om
Because I
den?
asked a question
For jeg stillede spørgsmålet,
earlier.
et spørgsmål tidligere.
Is there a mistake or a problem on this chart?
Er der en fejl eller et problem?
David said no.
David sagde nej,
In his estimation,
ifølge hans estimering.
and I'm asking the same question in Ellen White's estimation.
Og nu stiller jeg samme spørgsmål med Ellen Whites estimering.
And what does she say
Og
about
hvad
this?
siger hun omkring det?
Anyone on this side?
Nogen på den her side.
Susan.
Susan,
Inspired by God.
inspireret af Gud,
Gloria,
siger hun.
do you have your hand up?
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
David.
David,
So this was taught way.
Oh, sorry. Susan said inspired by God. I don't know if I got that bit.
Susan sagde,
done.
at Ellen White
Okay.
er inspireret af Gud.
In the movement.
David.
Yeah,
David.
this was taught way back in the movement. And
What David's about to say was taught way back in the movement.
Det som David siger, det blev undervist tilbage i noget tid siden i bevægelsen.
we used to, I don't know if this is the exact words, but we would say that God was in the publishment.
So there's this is a paraphrase of an Ellen White statement,
Så det der er en genfortælling af
and I think it's accurate.
Right? Og jeg mener, det er præcist nøjagtigt.
That we used to say, quoting Ellen White,
Vi plejede at sige, når vi citerede Ellen White,
that God was involved in the publishing of this chart.
at Gud var involveret i udgivelsen af det.
Rightly or wrongly,
Korrekt eller ukorrekt,
we inferred that meant there's no mistakes here.
så mente vi, at det betyder, at der ikke er nogen fejl her.
That this is a good chart.
Det er en god planche,
Kathy.
Kathy.
I'm just gonna say, we said God's hand, she said God's hand was in the publish, I think that's the word, God's hand was in the publishment.
So Kathy has said basically the same thing.
Så Kathy, hun siger stort set det samme.
She added a couple of more words.
Hun tilføjer et par ekstra ord.
So I don't know if anybody's good with their fingers, but maybe we'll be able to find that quote.
Jeg ved ikke, om vi kommer med vores fingre, men
Someone
måske
finds it, I'll put it down.
hvis nogen finder det, så skriver jeg det ned.
So
Så
we have a model
vi har en model,
that says 50 and 88.
der siger 1850 og
It
1800.
goes, we have a slavery model and a Sabbath model.
Vi har en model, der bygger på slaveri, og en model, der bygger på sabbaten.
And the one we're going to be picking up on is the 50.
Og den, som vi vil se på, det er fra 1850.
Test is slavery or equality or
Testen.
civil human rights.
Slaveri eller lighed eller borgerrettigheder.
And it's not the Sabbath Sunday issue.
Det er ikke sabbats og søndags.
So going back all the way to the beginning,
Så går jeg tilbage hele vejen til begyndelsen.
I'm hoping that we can see that the person's question,
Så håber jeg, at vi kan se, at personens spørgsmål,
I'm not saying people disagreed with this earlier,
jeg siger ikke, at folk de var uenige med det her tidligere,
but it has some legitimacy to it.
men hans spørgsmål vedkommende spørgsmål har en vis
There is some
legitimitet.
theological, prophetic context or reason to ask.
Der er en vis teologisk og profetisk kontekst at spørge ud fra.
The question about how do we deal with Sabbath
Spørgsmålet om, hvordan håndterer vi sabbaten,
isn't just about this person wanting to do their own will,
handler ikke bare om personen ønsker at gøre sin egen vilje,
have an easy life.
have et nemt liv.
I don't know what the person was thinking,
Jeg ved ikke, hvad personen tænkte,
but what I wanted to show us
men det, som jeg gerne vil vise os,
is that there is a prophetic significance behind that question,
det er, at der er en profetisk signifikans bag ved det
built
spørgsmål,
upon this 1850 model of human rights.
der bygger på den her 1850-model af,
That if
Men-
this is the test,
at hvis det her det er testen,
maybe we should view the Sabbath in a different light.
så bør vi måske se sabbaten i et andet lys.
Maybe like good advice.
Måske ligesom et godt råd.
Maybe you think it doesn't have the relevancy that it used to have.
Måske mener du ikke, at det har den samme relevans, som det plejede her.
Maybe it's not like of wearing trousers or pants for women.
Måske er det ikke ligesom at gå med bukser for...
Where's that from in the scriptures?
Hvor kommer det af i Bibelen?
Book first,
Bog først.
Deuteronomy chapter.
5. Mosebog. Nej, 5. Mosebog.
We're at Deuteronomy 22,
Ja, i 5. Mosebog, kapitel 22,
and they beat me to it. Verse 5.
vers 5.
So when we approached that verse,
Så når vi tilgår det vers,
what did we say?
hvad sagde vi så?
How does the movement relate to Deuteronomy 22, verse 5, Isabel?
Hvordan relaterer bevægelsen sig til 5. Mosebog 22, vers 5, Isabel?
So I repeat the question. How does the movement relate or deal with Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse 5, which is about, in modern language, women wearing pants or trousers?
Hvordan håndterer bevægelsen 5. Mosebog, kapitel 22, vers 5, spørgsmålet, som handler om, i en moderne kontekst, om kvinder, der bærer bukser?
So we have, but we've got some Bible verse. What do we do with that Bible verse?
Jeg har et bibelvers. Hvad gør vi med det bibelvers?
If you're not sure, that's fine.
Hvis du ikke er sikker, så er det fint.
So Isabel says it's an example.
Så Isabel siger, at det er et eksempel.
It's an example of what?
Et eksempel på hvad?
Okay. Anyone else?
Okay. Nogle andre.
So it's about gender roles.
Så det handler om kønsroller.
So my question is, what do we do with the verse now?
Mit spørgsmål er, hvad gør vi med verset nu?
Go for the best one. Oh, okay.
Liste
Well,
nu.
just do this one first then. If it's... Yes. So Deuteronomy 22 verse 5 says women can't wear trousers or pants.
Så 5. Mosebog 22, vers 5 siger, at kvinder kan ikke gå med bukser.
So what do we do with the verse?
Så hvad gør vi med det vers?
That's what it says. It says that women are to go to war, because the verse talks about the clothing for men, warriors, that women at that point were not to wear the clothing of the warrior. That's my understanding of how we understand.
So Kathy's speaking now about the larger context. You have to go to the previous chapter, and then you see the context is about going to war and gender roles. But it still doesn't address my question. What do we do with the verse? How do we approach it?
Så Kathy, hun går til den dybere kontekst, at man skal gå til foregående vers og så videre, men det besvarer stadig ikke mit spørgsmål. Hvad gør vi med verset?
So I'll answer my own question.
Så jeg vil besvare mit eget spørgsmål.
We go to that verse
Vi går til det vers,
and we say it no longer applies to us.
og så siger vi, det gælder ikke længere for os.
We'll just say it's an archaic statement. We'll just cross it out and we don't follow that anymore.
Vi siger, at det er et gammelt udsagn. Vi krydser det ud og følger det ikke
It's
længere.
not the only example, but it's an extreme example.
Det er ikke det eneste eksempel, men det er et ekstremt eksempel.
Do we approach, or should we approach, the Sabbath in the same way?
Tilgår vi, eller bør vi tilgå sabbaten på
That's
samme?
part of what's behind the person's original question.
Det er en del af det, der er bag ved personens originale spørgsmål.
If we can go to Deuteronomy 22 verse 5 and basically raise it,
Hvis vi kan gå til 5. Mosebog 22, vers 5, og stå dybest set,
how do we approach Exodus chapter 20, 8-11?
hvad gør vi så med 2. Mosebog, kapitel 20, 8-11, vers 8-11?
In the same way,
På samme måde,
in a modified way,
på en modificeret måde,
or is it still a thus saith the Lord in all of its minutiae, in its intricacies?
eller er det stadig et så siger Herren i alle henseender?
And I think it's based upon this issue here.
Og jeg tror, at det er baseret på det her problem
That
her.
the movement no
Okay.
longer speaks about Sabbath being the test.
Ikke længere taler om sabbaten som værende testen.
It now speaks about equality being the test.
Den taler nu om lighed som værende testen.
And what do we do with the fourth commandment now?
Og hvad gør vi så med det 4. bud?
Is it in the same category as a dress code?
Er det i samme kategori som dresscode?
Or do we just look at the principles of that commandment?
Eller ser vi bare på principperne af det bud?
Or do we break it line by line and still follow all of those rules?
Eller brækker vi det ned linje og følger alle
So
de
before
regler?
we do that, we have the reference for
det.
this.
Har vi så en reference for det her?
13 MR.
Manuscript Releases,
Manuscript Releases,
Volume 13,
bind 13,
page 359, paragraph 1. Is
59, paragraf 1.
that right?
Er det korrekt?
Okay, so that's the reference.
Okay, så det er referencen.
And someone here has read it, and I think it's accurate to what we said before. I'll paraphrase.
Jeg mener, at det er
The word hand.
ret korrekt.
That's fine.
Fortsæt igen.
Okay, so
Okay.
Back to the point I was just raised a minute ago. Someone had their hand up.
Så tilbage til den pointe, som jeg kom med for et minut siden. Der var nogen, der havde deres hånd oprakt.
It's still a moral obligation.
The student said the Sabbath is still a moral obligation,
Susan siger, at det er stadigvæk en obligation,
but it's not a test.
men det er ikke en test.
So when you say it's not a test, is it a test to you,
Så når hun siger, når du siger, at det ikke er en test, er det så ikke en test for dig?
or when you say a moral obligation? I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Når du siger, at det er en moralsk obligation eller forpligtelse, hvem er ikke sikker på, hvad du mener med det?
So she says it's our moral duty to keep it. Susan, if you don't keep it, what will
At
happen
det
to
er vores
you?
moralske pligt at holde den. Susan, hvis ikke du holder den, hvad sker der så med dig?
A slap on the wrist or lake of fire?
Bliver du frelst, eller?
So Susan's not sure. She's not sure if
Sikker.
keeping Sabbath is a life and death test any longer.
Så det er ikke længere en livs- eller døds test mere.
Is that fair representation?
Er det en fair repræsentation?
She says, yes, it was an accurate representation of her thought, but there are consequences.
Ja, det er en korrekt repræsentation af min tanke, men der er konsekvenser.
But you're not sure if the consequences is life and death any longer.
Men hun siger, at det ikke længere er en
She
konsekvens
nodded.
af, der handler om liv og
But
død.
you used to believe it.
Men det plejede du at tro.
Back in the day, you used to believe no Sabbath, death, eternal death,
Før i tiden, der ville du tro, at
I
hvis man
presume.
går tilbage, så betyder det død. Evig død.
She said yes.
Hun sagde ja.
So this is what's behind, I think, this person's question originally.
Så jeg tror, det er det, der ligger bag personens originale
And the
spørgsmål.
more we dig down into this issue,
Og desto mere vi graver ned i det her
it seems that
emne,
if
så
we're not a movement in crisis, we're a movement that's questioning something that we thought was really fundamental.
at hvis ikke vi er en bevægelse i krise, så begynder vi at stille spørgsmålstegn ved ting, der er ret fundamentale.
So that's why I said we should be concerned about what we have put onto this board.
Det er derfor, jeg synes, vi bør være bekymret med det, som vi har på den her tavle.
Gloria.
Gloria,
Said that the Bible is examples, right? But how do you draw?
So Gloria said that
så Gloria siger,
that I and Isabel,
at jeg og Isabel,
I don't know who came first,
jeg ved ikke, hvem der kom først,
has said that the Bible is a book of examples, not principle.
har sagt, at Bibelen er en bog af eksempler og ikke principper.
So with the Sabbath.
Carry on.
So with
Okay,
the Sabbath,
fortsæt bare.
do we draw out the principle of that to understand how to keep it or no?
Okay, so Gloria said, does that mean that we're supposed to take the principle of the Sabbath
Så Gloria sagde, betyder det, at vi skal tage sabbatens princip
as opposed to what, Gloria?
i modsætning til hvad, Gloria?
As opposed to the example.
I modsætning til eksemplet.
So what I thought that you were going to say,
Så det, som jeg troede, du ville sige,
should we take the spirit of the law
bør vi tage åndens ånd,
or the letter of the law?
eller lovens.
It comes up depending on when you evangelize with people, that issue comes up often, or conservatives and liberals.
Når man evangeliserer med folk, så kommer det her emne ofte op, eller konservative i forhold til liberale.
The spirit or the letter.
Ånden eller bogstavet.
So I never thought there was a difference between them,
Jeg tror aldrig, der var forskel på dem.
but I guess some people think that there is.
Men
Claudia.
jeg tror, at der er nogen, der synes, der er.
Why I would be concerned because with what I know now, in the past, they shifted and they didn't study the prophetic message. So if they would find out that 1863 was in the 2520.
I'm going to have to stop you here. It's too much and I need to have it contained so I can understand, so they can say what point you're making. So,
Stop der.
Claudio, are you suggesting that that God's church in the past made some kind of mistake? Is that what you're suggesting?
Claudia, foreslår du, at Guds kirke lavede nogle fejl i fortiden?
Claudio said yes. He thinks there were some mistakes made.
Han mener, at der er nogle fejl, der blev begået.
If they had studied and researched things properly,
Hvis de havde studeret og gransket deres ting
Claudio,
ordentligt,
what would have happened if they had done things properly? What would they
hvad ville der så ske?
have found?
Hvad ville de så have fundet?
And also studying that more.
So you're speaking about the 2520. I understand that.
Du taler
How
om,
does it relate to our study?
forstår jeg, men hvordan relaterer det sig til vores studie?
Go ahead.
Because if they would understand that, to do the same thing you did in 2012, and understand that 2014 was the Sunday law, but not the Sunday law, Sunday Sabbath. You know, the principle behind all the Sunday laws is oppression, church and state, the mark of the beast.
Okay, so what Claudio has said
Så hvad Claudia han har
is
sagt,
that the whole approach to this
det er, at hele tilgangen til dette,
is one about human oppression.
det handler om menneskelige,
And if you put that framework on top of this, it explains all of these problems.
hvis man lægger den struktur over det, så forklarer det alle de her problemer.
So I don't know if people see it that way or they agree.
Så jeg ved ikke, om folk de ser det på den måde, eller om de er enige.
Georgie, do you have your hand up? Okay.
George, hold din hånd op.
Someone else? Okay.
Nogle andre? Okay.
Any other thoughts or comments?
Nogle andre tanker eller kommentarer?
Gloria.
So
Gloria.
answer to the person that asked that question, how would you answer it?
So if you're asking about the question, Gloria said, how would I answer this person's question?
Gloria spørger, hvordan vil jeg svare på den her persons spørgsmål?
I'm not going to answer that. I'm not going to answer that question.
Jeg har ikke tænkt mig at svare det spørgsmål.
And the reason is
Og grunden er,
because in some people's mind, my answers carry more weight than other people's answers.
så har mit svar mere vægt end andre folks svar.
And that's okay in some contexts. I understand that.
Og det er okay i nogle kontekster, det forstår jeg.
But the reason that I don't want to answer it in this particular case
Grunden til, at jeg ikke vil besvare det i den her situation,
is because I wanted us to see this point.
fordi jeg gerne vil have, at vi ser den her pointe.
And I wanted us to go beyond. And I hope you understand what I'm about to say.
Og jeg vil gerne gå, det er fordi, jeg gerne vil gå videre. Jeg håber,
To
jeg
go beyond the carnal nature of the question.
Jeg vil gerne gå lidt dybere end den kødelige natur.
That even though it may have just been a practical thing that they were looking an answer for,
Selvom det blot var en praktisk ting, som de ledte efter et svar på.
I want us to know why they're asking that question.
Så vil jeg gerne vide, hvorfor de stiller det spørgsmål.
And I think in the consciousness of members in this movement, there has been a radical shift in our thinking.
Og jeg tror, at der er sket en radikal ændring i tankegangen på
And
den
so
her-
Gloria's question to me
Så Glorias spørgsmål til mig
wasn't just about a member attending the class on Sabbath.
handler ikke blot om et medlem, der gik i skole om lørdagen eller om sabbaten.
It's whether or not this radical change in thinking,
Snarere var det, at den her radikale måde at tænke
as
på,
we view the Sabbath,
i forhold til, hvordan vi ser sabbaten,
if I think that's a good idea or a bad idea.
om jeg tænker, det er en god idé eller en dårlig idé.
And I don't think it would be safe for me to answer that
Og jeg tror ikke, det ville være sikkert for mig at besvare det spørgsmål,
without giving all of you an opportunity to think about the issues at stake.
uden at give alle jer en mulighed for at tænke over de emner, som er på spil.
In whatever shape or form, to whatever degree,
I hvilken som helst form,
the fact that we're discussing this,
det faktum, at vi diskuterer det her,
the fact that we're looking at the chart,
faktum, at vi kigger på planchen,
we see the tension between Sabbath and slavery.
vi ser striden mellem sabbaten og
We
slaveriet.
look at all of Ellen White's writings
Vi kigger på alle Ellen Whites skrifter
and question them.
og stiller spørgsmålstegn ved dem.
The fact that we're doing that,
Det faktum, at vi gør det,
as a minimum, I think it should concern and worry us,
bør som minimum bekymre os alle.
so that when we come to whatever conclusion we come to,
Således at når vi kommer til hvilken som helst konklusion, som vi kommer til,
that we're happy about that.
at så er vi glade,
Because 4 years ago,
fordi for 4 år siden,
3 to 4 years ago, depending on how you do your calculation,
3 til 4 år siden, afhængig af hvordan man laver,
we threw away a fundamental Bible verse.
så kastede vi et fundamentalt bibelvers væk.
We took Ellen White quotes and just erased them.
Så tog vi Ellen Whites citater og slettede dem,
And we said, we're good to go. We are not only correct to do that, we have to do that.
og så sagde vi, det er helt fint, vi er ikke bare nødt
And
til
no
at
one objected.
gøre det. Og der er ikke nogen, der sagde noget imod.
Talking about wearing pants or trousers.
Vi taler imod at gå med bukser.
And I don't know if men and women in this movement
Jeg ved ikke, om mænd
have realized what we've done.
har indset, hvad vi har gjort.
Because when we start doing or looking at Exodus chapter 20,
Begynder at kigge på,
we get confronted with exactly the same issues.
så bliver vi konfronteret med præcis de samme problematikker.
Do we view Sabbath differently?
Ser vi sabbaten anderledes?
The test,
Testen,
is it a moral obligation or is it a test?
er det en moralsk obligation, forpligtelse, eller er det en test?
If we're not persuaded that it's a life and death issue,
Hvis ikke vi er overbevist om, at det er et emne omhandlende liv eller død,
are we comfortable with our thought processes?
er vi så komfortable med vores tankegang?
Susan,
Susan,
the subject of equality.
emnet om lighed.
So if a man or a woman
Hvis en mand eller
is
kvinde
either the patriarch or the matriarch of their sphere of influence,
er matriarken eller patriarken i deres indflydelsessfære,
is that a life and death issue?
er det så et emne, der vedrører liv eller
So
død?
Susan said yes.
Susan sagde ja,
So you're burning the lake of fire for patriarchy,
så du vil brænde i
Ja.
helvede
she
for,
said yes,
hun sagde ja,
but she's not sure if you're burning the lake of fire for breaking the Sabbath.
men hun er ikke sikker på, at man vil brænde i ildens sø for,
I'm not picking on her,
jeg forsøger ikke at mobbe hende,
but if she's thinking that,
men hvis hun tænker det,
if her thinking has changed that much,
hvis hendes tankegangen har ændret sig så meget
on something that identifies who we are. We're Seventh Day Adventists.
i forhold til noget, der identificerer, hvem vi er. Vi er 7. dags adventister.
I'm sure she's not the only one.
Er jeg sikker på, at hun ikke er den eneste.
And how we view the Sabbath
Og hvordan vi ser sabbaten,
is not just a moral issue.
det er ikke kun et moralsk emne.
It's also a prophetic one.
Det er også et profetisk et.
And if we start changing our relationship morally with something,
Og hvis vi begynder at ændre vores holdning moralsk til noget,
we begin changing our relationship with that issue prophetically as well.
så,
We must change it prophetically.
så er vi også nødt til at ændre vores holdning profetisk til det samme emne.
If you're not sure about that,
Hvis ikke du er sikker på det,
just work through the pants or the trouser issue in your mind. Work through the steps and the logic, and you'll see that point.
så arbejde dig igennem emnet om bukser til kvinder. Arbejde dig igennem logikken, så vil du se det.
If you change your morality, you change your prophecy,
Hvis man ændrer sin moralitet, så ændrer man også sin profeti,
and vice versa.
og vice versa.
If you change your prophecy, it affects your morality.
Hvis du ændrer din profeti, så påvirker det din moralitet.
Sabbath issue, would you say morally conservative but socially liberal?
So Gloria said, with respect to the Sabbath, is it morally conservative and socially liberal?
Så der bliver stillet et spørgsmål i forhold til sabbaten, om den er moralsk konservativ og profetisk liberal.
I'm going to show my ignorance now,
Jeg vil gerne vise min uvidenhed nu,
because I'm not sure what that means.
Like,
for jeg ved ikke, hvad det betyder.
the way that you can,
Okay.
so you keep the Sabbath the way that you consciously think that is right, but let others do whatever they need to do, because you don't know their situation, their circumstances.
So Gloria said,
Så Gloria sagde,
morally conservative, socially liberal means
moralsk konservativ, social liberal betyder,
you are strict about the issue yourself,
man er selv ret striks med emnet,
and you don't judge other people.
og man dømmer ikke andre.
So if that were the case,
Så hvis det var tilfældet,
then Sabbath would no longer be a test for the world.
så vil sabbaten ikke længere være en test for verden.
It only becomes a test for Adventists,
Det bliver kun en test for adventister,
which would then mean
hvilket så vil betyde,
if someone wanted to become an Adventist or join the movement,
hvis nogen ville blive en adventist eller en del af bevægelsen,
are we able to test them on their Sabbath keeping
vil vi så kunne teste dem på deres, om de holder sabbat
or
eller
not? You're not sure, Samuel? We can't test them.
vi kan ikke teste dem.
I think it's just the logic of that. Forget the morality. The logic would tell you
Logikken vil vise dig,
if we say
hvis
you're
vi
free to
siger,
do what you want and we won't monitor it or check it or judge it,
du kan gøre, hvad du vil, vi vil ikke monitorere dig, eller tjekke det, eller holde øje med det,
then it no longer becomes a test for them.
så bliver det ikke længere en test for dem.
And if you get to that stage,
Og hvis man kommer til det stadie,
it's a skip and a step to say it's not even a test for you,
så er det meget nemt at sige, at det ikke engang er en test for dig selv.
because what you'll now have begun to do
For det, som du nu vil begynde at gøre,
is have a two-tier system.
det er at have et todelt system.
One rule for them, one rule for me.
en regel for dem, en anden regel for mig.
And that becomes really problematic, I think.
Det tror jeg bliver meget problematisk.
Any other thoughts?
Nogle andre tanker?
Okay, so I wasn't expecting us to come to a conclusion in these studies,
Okay, så jeg forventede ikke, at vi ville komme til en konklusion i de her studier.
but I wanted to highlight
Jeg vil gerne fremhæve
several points.
flere pointer.
So I wanted to highlight several points that I think members in the movement have not considered.
Som jeg tror, at den her bevægelses medlemmer ikke har overvejet.
Or thought about and got to a place where they see what the conclusion is.
Eller tænkt på og set, hvor konklusionen vil føre dem hen.
So this is not a judgment on any individual person,
Så det er ikke en fordømmelse af noget individ.
but if this group that we have here in person was a representation of our movement,
Men hvis den her gruppe her var en repræsentation af vores bevægelse,
we're not sure if it's okay if a school forces you to attend a class on Sabbath, whether it's okay to say yes or no. We're not sure about that.
så ved vi ikke, om det er okay, at en skole den tvinger en til at gå i skole om sabbaten. Om det er et ja eller nej, det er vi ikke sikre på.
We're questioning whether or not Sabbath is even a life and death issue,
De stiller spørgsmålstegn ved, om sabbaten overhovedet er et emne,
which I would then argue
som jeg så vil argumentere,
means it's not a test to join this movement.
vil betyde, at så er det ikke en test.
And if it's not a test for them to join the movement, it can't be a test for us to remain in the movement.
Og hvis ikke det er en test for dem at blive en del af bevægelsen, så kan det ikke være en test for os at blive i bevægelsen.
And once you get to that stage,
Når man kommer til det stadie,
the fourth commandment would go to the same place as Deuteronomy 22 verse 5.
så vil det fjerde bud ryge samme sted hen som 5. Mosebog, kapitel 20, vers 5.
Because do women in our movement have to wear, I keep saying trousers, but pants if you forget. Do women have to wear trousers all the time?
Fordi skal kvinder gå med bukser hele tiden?
No, they can wear what they want now.
Nej, de kan gå med, hvad de vil nu.
So women have understood what those verses say
Så kvinder har forstået, hvad de vers, de sagde,
and have come to a place where they have freedom to do what they want.
og er nu kommet til et sted, hvor de har frihed til at gøre, hvad de vil.
Which means trouser wearing or pant wearing is no longer a test.
Hvilket betyder, at det at gå med bukser, det er ikke længere en test.
It was never a test even in 19.
Det var aldrig en test, heller ikke i 2019.
It served as a symbol of something more profound, more deeper.
Men det fungerede som en test af noget dybere.
So back in Germany, it was framed as a test.
Så tilbage i Tyskland, der blev det
And I still think that was
test,
appropriate.
og det mener jeg stadig var passende.
So the question is, do we approach Sabbath keeping in the same way?
Så spørgsmålet er, tilgår vi det at holde sabbat på samme måde?
We have a Nethinim join us.
Vi har en tempeltræl, der
We explain all of our philosophies and our ideas, our theological position.
forklarer alle vores teologiske positioner,
Do we
filosofier.
say to them, let's check what you're wearing?
Ser vi til dem, lad os se, hvad du har på.
Would we do that?
Vil vi gøre det?
Some people are adamant, like, no, we don't. And some people are looking, I'm not sure, maybe we do.
Nogle folk mener, nej, kigger på mig, som om det gør vi ikke, og andre,
We don't check, are you wearing trousers or skirts? We don't do that, do we?
de tjekker ikke, om folk de har bukser eller
So it's not a test,
gør vi. Så det er ikke en test.
but we would explain the concept of gendered clothing and the world in which we live.
Men vi ville forklare konceptet om kønsbeklædning
So if
og
we're okay,
verden,
we're together on that point.
så hvis vi på samme bølgelængde ved
How do
det,
we approach the fifth commandment?
hvordan tilgår vi så det 5. bud?
Do we say,
Siger vi,
what is the fifth commandment?
hvad er det 5. bud?
Honor your parents.
Ære dine forældre.
So we might have a discussion of what that means, but do we say that's still in force?
Det vil måske have en diskussion, der det betyder, men vil vi sige, at det stadig er gældende?
For sure we would,
Selvfølgelig vil vi det,
because we could easily tuck it into the concept of civil rights.
fordi vi vil nemt kunne placere det ind under konceptet med
And
borgerrettigheder.
if this Nethanim says, well, I abuse my parents,
Men den her tempeltræl, han sagde, jamen jeg misbruger mine
can I
forældre,
join you?
kan jeg blive en del af?
We'd say, no, it's a test of fellowship.
Vi vil sige nej, det er en test for at være en del af os.
And someone said earlier, if you're abusive,
Og nogen
you
siger,
can't go to heaven and you're going to the lake of fire.
hvis du misbruger, så kan du ikke komme i himlen. Du vil gå i dødens sø.
So the question is, let's go to the fourth commandment.
Så spørgsmålet er så, lad os gå til det 4. bud.
Is that a test of fellowship or not?
Er det en test eller ej?
When we talk about morally conservative, socially liberal,
Når vi taler om moralsk konservative, socialt liberale.
because when we start viewing the Sabbath that way,
Når vi begynder at se sabbaten på den måde,
we get to the place where we don't have the Sabbath.
så kommer vi til et sted, hvor vi ikke har sabbaten.
We acknowledge it
Vi anerkender det
as a historical fact,
som et historisk faktum,
as a past moral imperative,
som en fortidig moralsk,
but we get to the place where we say it's no longer applicable.
når vi kommer til et sted, hvor vi siger, at det ikke længere er gældende.
And the questioner asked the movement.
Og personen med spørgsmålet spurgte,
If you're the movement, or at least part of it,
hvis du er bevægelsen, eller i det mindste en del af den,
you and I
du og jeg,
need to come to a place that we understand our relationship to the Sabbath
så har vi brug for at komme til et sted, hvor vi forstår vores forhold til sabbaten,
and how it fits into the prophetic model that we have.
og hvordan den passer ind i den profetiske model, som vi har.
When we talk about the restoration in this Eden to Eden model,
Når vi taler om genopretningen i den her eden til eden
we've
model,
spoken about civil rights being restored.
vi talte om borgerrettigheder, der blev genoprettet.
Ellen
Menneskerettigheder,
White calls it what?
de kalder en
What,
vej,
what institution is that,
hvad kalder hun det for?
in
Hvilken
her words?
i hendes egne ord.
No, an institution. She says, as it was then, so it's going to be now. So there's some restoration that needs to happen.
Hun siger, som det var dengang, så vil det være nu. Der er noget genopretning, der skal...
We have slavery and civil rights, but she uses
Vi har
a
slaveri
word, a
og
relationship.
menneskerettigheder, når hun bruger et andet ord.
Marriage.
Ægteskab.
So yeah. So the what I was talking about was marriage.
Så den, jeg havde i mente, det var ægteskab,
So, which is a social construction.
som er en social konstruktion.
So she says marriage to marriage.
Så hun siger ægteskab til
And
ægteskab.
then in our group, they said it's actually two things.
Og i vores gruppe, der sagde, det var to
And
ting.
David said the second one was the Sabbath.
Den anden var sabbaten.
So I'll write seventh as the seventh day. And as you
Yeah.
know,
Og den
this
syvende.
model here
Den her
that
model her,
predated the Eden to Eden model
den gik forud for modellen med edens have, tidens have.
is exactly the same model.
Det er præcis samme model.
So the Eden to Eden model was not something new.
Så modellen med Edens have var ikke noget nyt.
It was in the consciousness of this movement a long time ago.
Det var i den her bevægelses bevidsthed for længe siden.
It was just framed differently and less well refined.
Det blev bare sagt mindre raffineret og var knap
In the
så
same way,
på samme måde.
we knew about 50,
Så vidste vi også om
its connection to the chart,
1850 og den forbindelse,
which was an evangelistic tool
som var et evangelistisk
to
værktøj
go to the world
til at gå til verden
and warn them about the second advent,
og advare dem om det andet komme,
which is the context of the Sunday law,
som er konteksten af søndagsloven,
which is why it's there.
hvilket er hvorfor den er der.
And if you go to 1848,
Og hvis man går til 1848,
Ellen White's going to begin to prepare the church for 50,
så vil Ellen White begynde at forberede kirken til 1850,
because there's trouble in the world,
fordi der er problemer i verden,
political agitation,
politisk agitation.
and Adventists are saying,
Adventister siger,
what are they saying? If
Hvad
we
siger
know
de?
the history,
så kender historien.
this is
Det der er,
this is the end.
det der er enden.
This is the Sunday law.
Det der er søndagsloven.
She says, not, it's not that.
Hun siger, nej, det er ikke det.
She says, this is the prelude to what's about to happen.
Hun siger, det er
We've
forsmag.
known all of this a long time ago.
Vi har kendt til alt det her i lang tid.
There's more continuity between the messages of Elder Jeff and Elder Tess than some people appreciate.
Der er mere kontinuitet fra Jeffs budskaber til Tess budskaber, end flere vil.
So when we come back to this modeling,
Så når det kommer til den her modellering,
many of us, prior to what I've just drawn there,
så vil mange af os før det her, jeg har
would
tegnet,
say
der vil de sige,
it's only this
det er kun den her
relationships
forhold,
based upon this modeling here of the 1850.
baseret på den her model fra 1850.
And we'd say, well, Ellen White talks about twin institutions, but we'll do away with that.
At når Ellen White, hun snakker om de her dobbelte institutioner, men dem ser vi
But
bort.
we constructed a chiastic structure based upon that Ellen White quote,
Men vi konstruerede en kiastisk model baseret på det Ellen White citat,
before the Eden to Eden model was ever developed.
før den her model om Edens have nogensinde var udviklet.
It's crude, it's basic,
Det er groft, det er basalt,
but it follows the same principle.
men det følger samme princip.
And if it's a methodological issue here,
Og hvis det er et metodisk
it's
problem,
not so easy to throw it away.
så er det ikke så nemt at kaste det væk.
So we're going to close now.
Så vi afslutter nu.
We have a study tomorrow,
Et studie i morgen.
and we'll recap
Der vil vi gennemgå det hele igen.
and see if we can discuss this a little bit more or move on to a new subject. I'm not quite sure yet.
Der vil vi se, om vi kan diskutere det her mere, eller gå videre til et nyt emne.
Let's pray.
Lad os bede.
Dear Lord,
Herre Gud,
we know and we believe that you are in control.
vi ved, og vi tror, at du er i kontrol.
We know that you are leading us along the narrow path.
Vi ved, at du fører os langs smalle sti.
The midnight cry behind us
Midnatråbet bag os,
and Jesus in front of us.
og Jesus foran os.
Help us to have the confidence
Hjælp os til at have tilliden,
to believe that we are still being led
til at tro, at vi stadig bliver ledt
by our past experience and what the future is before us.
af vores fortidige erfaring og fremtiden, der ligger foran os.
May we not be a movement in crisis,
Må vi ikke være en bevægelse i krise,
but may we continue to be led and directed by your will,
men må vi fortsætte med at blive ledt og vejledt af din vilje,
wherever it may lead us.
hvor end den må føre os hen.
As we wrestle with our relationship to you,
Som vi kæmper med vores forhold til
to your
dig,
laws and your commandments,
til dine lov og befalinger,
your counsel and your advice,
så er din råd og
I
Right.
ask that we would hear your voice
så vil jeg bede, at vi må høre din stemme,
as it permeates through our movement,
som den gennemtrænger vores bevægelse,
and that we would come to a proper and right conclusion,
at vi må komme til den rigtige
not just on the Sabbath,
ikke kun i forhold til sabbaten,
but on all the issues that confront us.
men på alle de emner, der konfronterer os.
In Jesus' name, amen.
I Jesu navn.
Thank you, everybody. I'll hand you over to the host now.